I think the positive sort of vibes, if you will, on the offensive line are a lot more positive than maybe people would think to say, oh, you have two positions that aren't absolutely nailed down in stone at this point.
Pay heed, all who enter, and beware of this podcast. That's right. This is the Pay Heed podcast on the Kansas City Sports Network. I'm Nick Springer. Of course, I'm here with Kevin Flaherty. We're brought to you by Emprise Bank, your partner in all things possible. And folks, we are single digits away from opening kickoff of the 2025 college football season for Kansas football at the new booth. And if depending on when you're listening to this, we may be a week out. If you're listening over the weekend, on Saturday would be exactly 1 week away from opening kickoff. So no better time than the present to subscribe on Apple and Spotify here to our show. Also head over to our YouTube channel. You want to subscribe there on YouTube because we're going to be doing our YouTube live shows after every KU football game this season. So immediately following the game, within 15 to 20 minutes, you can expect us to be live over on our YouTube channel. It's a great opportunity to join the show for instant reactions. Also have a chance to join our live chat with other great KU fans. We had some excellent support last season, and we're hoping to continue that and grow it even more this season. So absolutely, go ahead and subscribe over there on our YouTube channel at Kansas Jayhawks KCSN. You also get access to some exclusive video coverage as well, including from KU Football Media Day, which we are going to be talking about a bit more extensively here on this show today as well. We had a chance to catch up with a bunch of different players. We're going to be rolling out some of that content from Media Day over the course of the weekend and early next week. So you want to check all that out over on our YouTube channel. Also had a chance to hear from Travis Goff as well. You can check that out on our YouTube channel also. So lots of content both on the audio side and over on the YouTube channel as well. And speaking of Travis Goff, that kind of brings me to the first point I wanted to get into before we start really talking about what happened at Media Day. And that is, of course, that one David Booth made a what some would call a generous donation to KU Athletics to the tune of $300 million. $300 million, believed to be the one of, if not the largest donation in college athletics history to any program. So take that, SEC, and take that. Who's the guy from Texas Tech? What's that guy's name? Cody Campbell. Yeah, take that, Cody Campbell. What do you have to say about that? So shout out to David Booth. Obviously, he's already given so much of his time, energy, and, of course, money to Kansas Athletics. I mean, he's got the damn football stadium named after him, so that should tell you something. And $75 million of his $300 million is going to be allocated towards phase 2 construction of the football stadium, as Travis Goff revealed on Thursday afternoon. And then, of course, the other $225 million, that's going to be basically general allocation for KU football. Travis Goff actually kind of talked about it on Thursday afternoon when we spoke to him about, look, we can't predict where the state of college athletics will be, not even in the next 12 months, let alone the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. So essentially, it's great to have, obviously, essentially an endowment of money that can be utilized in whatever way KU may need to utilize it in attacking, continuing to stay competitive in the college athletic environment and whatever may be next in college athletics. So, yeah, really incredible moment, obviously, for KU. I think you could certainly tell that Travis Goff was fired up about it. What was your reaction to that news of that donation, Kevin?
Yeah, $225 million is a pretty solid rainy day fund, Nick. I think that was the fascinating part. I think to me was obviously anything to help with the current stadium project is great, and they're working towards that, and we'll get to the stadium, I'm sure, here in just a minute. But the $225 million basically being there as a buffer almost, hey, do you need this to make rev share get up to where it's competitive? Okay, you have that there. Do you need that, for different purposes that you maybe don't even see coming, was one of the things that he had said. And so it's really such a generous gift from a guy that, can you believe, like, somebody has a chance to say, oh yeah, the stadium was named after me for the money I gave before I gave the $300 million.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like, probably people within KU would know, but I was, from the outside, I was trying to guess, like, how much total David Booth probably has given to KU. I mean, it's got to be well over half a billion at this point in total money in terms of what he's given to KU. I mean, maybe, I don't know, 750 million, maybe too much. I mean, he just gave 300 million, obviously, all in one sitting. So, it's hard to calculate exactly how much he maybe given prior to that. But yeah, we're talking about an incredible amount of money that, again, could truly change the trajectory of KU athletics in the future, depending on what happens. I mean, I know, Kevin, you've talked about it a number of times before on the show, but I get the sense that you expect that, realignment could happen again in conferences sooner rather than later. And if you consider Kansas having this amount of money, that they have stored up, plus the new football stadium, suddenly that makes them a very attractive program to an SEC or Big Ten, if that is the route that things happen to go, if that's the way the dominoes fall. Obviously, I don't really like that idea. Like, I don't want that to happen, but certainly you want to put yourself in the best position possible to stay relevant. And I think this will certainly do that.
Yeah, you're talking to somebody who loves the old Big Eight, much less the Big 12. So the further we get apart from that, I think the worse really for college athletics. But at the same time, the ACC is kind of hanging on by a thread at this point. The Pac-12 is trying to rebuild, but not really rebuilding. And so I do think realignment is going to have another turn. Now, whether that happens in 3 years, whether that happens in 7 years, I don't know. But we aren't done with realignment at this point. And so a big part of, I think, Travis Goff's job is to make sure that Kansas is in the most beneficial position when that comes down. It's about survival, right? And I think that not only has Travis Goff done an amazing job of putting Kansas into a significantly better position than it was before, you just think about, having an actual rock solid football program, and you'll hear Lance Leipold talk about that part later in the show. But having the rock solid football program, following that up with the facilities and everything that they're doing, and then having this generous gift from David Booth to kind of take things over the top, where you can address any number of scenarios, help out in a lot of different ways. I really do think that Kansas is the position the program is in could not be further night and day from where it was in 2020, where if we're being quite frank, if the round of realignment that's coming in 2027, 2030, 2032, whatever, if Kansas's football program and athletic department was in the same place it was in 2020 when that happened, Kansas might have wound up in the Mountain West or something like that. And instead, you're putting yourself in a legitimate position where, like you said, you can choose to stay in the Big 12 if you feel like that's your best option. And if not, you're maybe making a case for yourself for, hey, we know the Big Ten and the SEC don't want to expand unless it's something that can increase its value. Now Kansas is starting to put itself into a spot where there is some increased value there.
Shifting gears to the actual product, the actual football team.
Yeah,
Lance Leipold, you mentioned, had a chance to speak for well over 30 minutes to the media on Thursday afternoon as part of Media Day. We're going to get to all of that, so you'll be able to hear the entirety of what Lance Leipold thought coming up later on in the show. But before we get to his thoughts, I wanted to get to your thoughts, Kevin, because I'm sure you had some hearing from Lance Leipold, both the offensive and defensive coordinators, Jim Zabrowski and DK McDonald, and having really our last chance to kind of openly speak to a lot of players, right? Obviously, we're going to get a chance to probably hear from some guys over the course of the season, but in a more, I guess, informal setting at Media Day, a chance to really speak to every player, or a majority of players. What was sort of your takeaways from today, from Thursday?
Well, Nick, I love the defensive linemen and offensive linemen. That's where my heart gets warm and fuzzy. And I thought one of the things that was really interesting was the way they talked about the offensive line, both Zabrowski and Leipold, in terms of, it wasn't, oh my gosh, we have a competition at guard and tackle. It was, hey, we've got good options there. And there could be some rotation there. In particular, talked about that with Enrique Cruz and Nolan Gorska. And I think when you look at that part of it, I think the positive sort of vibes, if you will, on the offensive line are a lot more positive than maybe people would think, to say, oh, you have two positions that aren't absolutely nailed down in stone at this point. But talking to Kobe Baines, talking to Bryce Foster, talking to other guys on the offensive line, even some guys that that aren't going to start this year, like Jack Tanner and Tyler Mercer. Like you said, we do get a lot of players available at this thing. Talking to James Livingston about what the offensive line was like when he got there versus what it is now. I think offensive line is one of those positions that I don't want to say as a question mark, Nick, but had some questions about. I felt a lot better about that position based on the conversations we had with coaches and players. How about you? Was there a position group or somebody that kind of stood out to you in a similar way?
Yeah, I mean, well, with the offensive line, just to sort of put a button on that, we
Yeah.
talked about it on our previous show about Daryl Paulson had that similar vibe
Yeah.
of really not concerned, and there may be a time and a place in the future to be concerned about the offensive line, but I think as we sit right now, you just kind of have to sit back and trust what you're hearing from the coaches and staff of, hey, it's a great, great competition, and there's guys that are really battling it out, which is going to make whoever is the perceived starter better for it. So I think that's kind of where I'm at, I guess, in the offensive line. We'll have to see how things play out. I think certainly the Missouri game will be the first legitimate test of what the offensive line is going to be with some of the talent that Missouri has on the defensive front. So maybe at that point you could sit down and have a bigger conversation about, hey, is the offensive line going to be okay at that point?
Yeah.
So I guess that's kind of where I'm at with that.
The offensive line, not to cut you off, but the offensive line could be pretty good and still struggle against Missouri, because that's going to be
true.
That's going to be one of the best defensive lines probably KU is going to face all year. But I definitely agree that that's going to be one where we're going to find out about that offensive line in a hurry in that game.
Yeah, beyond that, something that stood out to me, and it was actually a question that you asked. So, Big J journalist Kevin Flaherty doing a great job, and you'll hear Lance Leipold's answer verbatim coming up later on in the show. But we mentioned that we felt at this stage about a week ago, really, that KU was pretty healthy, or generally looking pretty healthy, and Lance Leipold kind of doubts that a little bit, rattle off several guys that had been dealing with injuries. Most notably probably was Dean Miller. He mentioned Dean Miller. He mentioned Blake Harold. Mentioned Joseph Sipp, I think, as well. So a couple of guys that I think sort of caught my attention and made me think, okay, well, if Dean Miller was an all-conference guy out in the postseason last year, and I think coming into this season, he certainly seems like he would be lined up to be your most prolific pass rusher, in late down situations. Him not being 100% is a little concerning. What does that do for KU's ability to effectively rush the passer? I don't know. You think about in the secondary, a guy like DJ Graham, who's been also seemingly pretty banged up over the course of camp. What does that do for the secondary that's pretty young, right? Like a lot of pressure is on Jalen Todd's shoulders, who he is just a true sophomore. So that's a big test for him. And then if DJ Graham isn't available or isn't able to play to start the season, you're talking about a Jaleel Hurley, who obviously just joined the program from Alabama. You're talking about an Asa Alexander, who's in a similar boat to Jalen Todd with just even less experience. So on the injury front, I have a little bit more pause, I think, now than I did even earlier this week in terms of KU's health. Now, I will say the positive, the silver lining of all that is that it didn't appear to me as if anybody was where we weren't talking about anything that was going to be like season ending, right?
Sure.
Which you go back to last season with like Deshaun Hanukkah, but there are, I think, some guys banged up that could affect the start of the season for Kansas potentially more so than maybe previously thought. Just kind of reading between the lines on Lance Leipold's answer in regards to injury. So that was something that stood out to me.
Yeah, I would agree, and that was just kind of why I asked. And it was a real general question of just sort of, hey, what's the health of the team?
Yeah, honestly, I was pretty shocked that Lance Leipold was so forthcoming. Normally, I don't think he is that way, but
yeah, and we had a lot of discussion prior to that, and you guys will get to see it about the new releasing injury reports and all of that. And so it was kind of funny, he was kind of like, do I have to release an injury report? He doesn't, but I agree with you. He was very open about it. And I thought it was really interesting. Dean Miller was one of the guys that I talked to. And for those of you, who aren't familiar with KU Media Day, it's just an absolute madhouse. They send out a ton of players at once.
It's
Nick
very chaotic.
starts off kind of at one end, I start off at the other, and we kind of work our way in. And so there are going to be some guys that you talk to, obviously, that I didn't, and vice versa. Dean Miller was on my side, and one of the things that he had kind of said was that he was really impressed with the guys who stepped up while he was out. And so I think, I think Dean's going to be okay for the start of the year, but I think even beyond that, I think it gave guys like Leroy Harris a chance to stand out, and some of those other guys. When you look at Justice Finkley, Alex Bray in that mix, Dak Brinkley is a guy that's gotten some positive reviews, and so I think they've really discovered that they have really nice defensive end depth. And when Dean Miller is ready to go, if that's week 1, if that's week 2, whatever it is, or week 0 in the case of Kansas, I do think that this is a group that has a chance to be a real positive on that defense, alongside that defensive tackle group that we know and love so much.
Yeah, I will say, if Dean Miller does start the season a little banged up, or if he's not 100%, yeah, Leroy Harris may be a name that you want to familiarize yourself with, because he has been getting a lot of discussion lately. The transfer out of Chattanooga, he's got an incredible frame. He could be somebody that maybe bursts onto the scene a little bit for Kansas, especially if Dean Miller is indeed potentially not 100%. So before we get to Lance Leipold, Kevin, anything else you wanted to add on our experience at Media Day?
The one thing that was kind of interesting, I did think, I also had some of the linebackers, and so getting to talk to Bengali Kamara, I asked him basically, how good can your linebacker room be? He goes, we'll see. He was just kind of like, we got to go out and prove it. And so I think, he was talking about the linebackers in general, but I think there's a lot of that sort of on that back 7 or so on defense. When you look at, hey, these are guys that in some cases are pretty proven players, but not necessarily at Kansas. And so I think that there's going to be a lot of, okay, we feel positively about these guys. The leadership has been good. The buy-in has been good. But ultimately, Nick, a week from now or so, depending when you're listening to the show, Kansas is going to have to go at it and prove it. Talking season basically is over. It's time to go do it.
Exactly. But talking season's not quite over yet, because Lance Leipold talked with the media for over 30 minutes, and we'll get to that coming up next. Looking for tickets for your next event? Tickets for Less is your #1 source. Save big on every purchase when you use promo code KCSN at ticketsforless.com.
I'm Brett Goodwin, one of the owners of The Learning Tree. The Learning Tree is a neighborhood toy store in Prairie Village, Kansas. This has been here in this location since 2000s, and my husband Alan and I purchased the store in 2023. Alan and I grew up in families where we've always wanted to have a business together. Alan grew up, for instance, his parents had a jewelry store. I worked in a local toy store here in Prairie Village when I was growing up. When this opportunity happened in 2023, we knew right away we wanted to contact them and pursue the store. We wouldn't have been able to get the store without the team at Emprise Bank. From the day we contacted them, they knew what we needed to do, which was very helpful. I would absolutely recommend the team at Emprise Bank to anyone looking to secure a business. We worked with Emprise from day one. They were extremely helpful. They were always great resources. We talk to them frequently. They know the area. They're very friendly. We know who we're going to talk with, and they know what we need to do. We hope we'll see you at the Learning Tree.
I know you posted on Twitter, but what's your reaction to the donation yesterday and the impact that it can have for your program?
Well, it's huge. It's unbelievable. It's someone like David Booth had that type of generosity and the impact it'll make for our football program and athletic department for many years to come. During a time that's so important for us to keep moving in so many different directions of things, whether it be stadium or revenue share and all the different things that continue to evolve in college athletics. A gift like this gives us the opportunity, to stay strong, and yet it's not the end. We have to keep moving. We're going to need other help along the way to do things to continue to complete the projects, the mission for success, and things of that nature.
Coach, can I follow up on that real quick? Just ask more sort of on the personal side of your interactions with Mr. Booth. How has your relationship developed over the years, and what sort of questions did he ask you, or how did this process come along at the personal level?
You know, again, I've had the opportunity to have multiple interactions with Mr. Booth. He's a quality man, obviously highly successful, very personable, very welcoming. But make no mistake in this, that Travis Goff and Chancellor Gerard were the lead people, along with our development staff, in getting this gift across the line and accomplished. So, kudos to Travis and all the efforts that he made. On my personal level, shortly upon being named head coach here in that May, had a chance to fly to Austin and meet David. He welcomed us into his home, met some other boosters in that first month, and he's always been very welcoming, understanding, appreciative. Obviously, our win in Austin was big to him as well as us. That year of progress, and he's always been appreciative of the progress he's seen in the program in our short time here. I'm trying to get my months straight here. Earlier, might have been June or late May. In there, we had dinner with Travis and myself and Coach Self. We met and had dinner with some other people from development that were there here in town. Other times to have the opportunity to interact with him has been great. He knows the importance of what athletics does for a university in many different scenarios, as he alluded to in the video, and he's seen the benefit of what a successful college football program means in today's age as well, and for that I can't thank the man enough.
Thank you very much. Once the Big 12 announced their lead player availability reports this season for conference games, did you support that, or generally what do you think about it?
Yeah, Jordan, I've been kind of it was trending that direction. Kind of want to see how it plays out. We talked about it in our meetings in late May. We knew it was kind of going there. We talked about some different thoughts on when and what categories. I haven't seen the final one yet of how it's going to be labeled. We know why it's being done, for the other impact of things that happen in this country and worldwide. So, it's there as long as it's balanced for everyone and where it's at. I think it'll work out fine. I think for us, when you have that many players and building your template of to make sure that you're doing it accurately, as I've tried to use the consequence for not doing it correctly is, that's always going to be the thing is, and I use Jalen's example in Texas a couple of years ago. We're at the hotel and, we're not even 90 minutes from kickoff, and I find out he's not playing. Where does that fall in those circumstances? And how is that evaluated if we said he was available and wasn't? So that's the one that is unique to me.
Last year we talked a lot about the new in-helmet communication devices going in with a new linebacker room, a new back end overall. Who are some of the guys who you're relying on to set the defense? Again,
most of the time it would be at the linebacker core. It makes the most sense to have the second level players there. And sometimes you may use a safety, but again, for communication and where it's at, from coach to player, it'll be the linebacker room. One thing I think we've done a lot better job to this date is communication as a whole on defense. DK's been emphatic on it since day one about communicating better, and I think our guys have. So again, home or away, whatever's happening, communication, echoing calls, understanding calls is also vital.
And we've talked about the depth at linebacker and how it's been different than maybe having someone like Cornell or Tylen that's always in the game. How has that worked throughout camp of having different guys coming in and being the voices on certain situations?
I think it's good. Again, some of those guys, whether it be the newcomers that that have joined us, from Trey and Bengali and Joseph to a guy like Jason Dillon, who's been in the program, and Ezra Bedrell's a guy who's had a really fine camp as a walk-on and put himself in a position to see the field. All those guys have been, given the opportunity within their rotations to be vocal and be leaders, and I think they've done a fine job.
Joe Deneen is back on staff. How did that come about, and what has he brought to the coaching staff?
Exactly how it came about when the Purdue staff was let go. When we had an opening when Coach Dawson was hired by Scott Frost to rejoin him at UCF, kind of looking at it, knew about Joe, I met Joe before, but really what triggered my interest was a conversation with Brett Bielema a couple years ago, talking about Joe, and he raved about him when he was at Illinois, talking about he's as fine a young assistant as he has seen, smart, personable, energy, all the things, a really good football coach. And as the conversations went on, and for us to have a chance to bring someone like that back to the program, I thought would be beneficial, and I'm really happy to have Joe here and the impact he's made in this time.
You've talked about the continued benefits of Jalen getting the chance to kind of practice more with the wide receiver room that's pretty brand new. How's that connection look between them, and how's that continue to grow?
I think it's been excellent. JD's had he's had a great camp. He's playing really well, and to see his confidence and the timing and connections and some of those things, you kind of look back and whether it be him being limited or players being limited, you kind of see the void that was there, and it kind of makes you kind of look back and appreciate what you have going on right now, and it'll be important to go. But I think he feels really good about his timing and understanding with this group.
So to circle back to the injury reports a little bit, sorry. Was sports gambling something you were referencing as Lance is coming up?
Is that what I was referencing? You said it, I didn't.
I just want to make it.
Is that your question? Is that what that? Yeah, spot on.
Okay. Lance, over the years, has there been an indicator of one thing at this time of year that kind of tells you whether your team's ready or not? And has that been consistent? And if so, how does that one thing look with this group right now?
When they're sick of practicing against each other, usually.
Yeah.
I mean, there's part of that. I think our players have done a good job, and we've been very strong about it. Sometimes in camps, people think that fights and short tempers is a sign that it's ready to go play. I think it's a waste of time and a lack of discipline. So we don't really tolerate it, never have. I think our guys have been really good about that. Things get separate. I think our practice model really helps us there. But I think you're at a point now with some of the things that you can tell they're getting anxious, and I don't want to say it's getting monotonous in this, but there's a routine, and you have to embrace some of the monotonous things in order to be great at something. You have to do those tasks that kind of require repetition, and to embrace that kind of grind to do that. But I think we're getting at that point. I think it showed itself a little bit to me today. I thought we were okay out there today. I thought we looked a little heavy-legged, and that happens at this time of camp. And as things start to taper here the next couple of days, as we approach game week, I think we'll have them in a great spot and to be excited for kickoff.
What if you could, just kind of a general overview of what it does look like between now and the start of a true game?
Tomorrow, we got meetings and walk through here today. We'll go through our mock game scenario tomorrow with a lot of situations, but we'll go everything through our pregame routine. In fact, you kind of forget, we got coaches who have never coached a game here, and there's new rules. You can use monitors and video at halftime now, where you can set up a place to watch. So from going out, with 50 new at least scholarship players, let alone others. We got a lot of players that are new in our program on how do we warm up on game day? How do we use half the field? Where do we go? What's the rotation of going out onto the field? So on and so forth. We'll go through all of that. We'll go through a mock game scenario, which isn't any different than probably 99% of the teams in the country will do something similar. We'll practice Saturday morning, and we'll give them Sunday off, and then we approach our game week routine on Monday. So our new student athletes on campus have other things now that the campus is starting to pick up that they're required to go to, so it does kind of cut into our day a little bit. Have to modify that, cut some things short, but the school year and the season's right around the corner for sure.
Over here, Lance. When it comes to a week 0 game, I know there's some advantages and disadvantages to it. With all the new players like you're alluding to and new staff and coordinators, how much has that changed things you guys have gone across with a week 0 game? Just do you like the early start to season?
I think that's to be determined based on how the season plays out a little bit, Harold. I just think it's it's exciting to get out there and get going. I think what we're allowed to do now in college football in our summer and our time with the players that have been increased, you get a chance to teach and do things that allow you to hit the ground running. Where you get concerned from my chair is it's one less week really of summer conditioning and weight room time and things like that. So that's the thing. We have 3 open weeks this year, which will be, how does that work on the body, mentally, all those kind of things. But, all in all, you have a chance to be one of the first ones to kick off the season. I think a lot of people across the country are excited about college football, excited to watch college football, watching games in August that count and are not just practice games. I think for a football fan, is something that is exciting, and for us to have a window on national television to expose our program, our stadium, and everything like that is something that we should be extremely excited about and embrace.
Other question I got, just because it's been in the national news a lot lately with everybody and all the headlines, you have to kind of re-emphasize to your players about just social media and checking all your other accounts and everything, you're going back, and what's your staff do to make sure to tell the guys like, hey, these things can really get you in trouble, and you have to you feel like you have to re-emphasize that every single year with this new crop?
We hit it, yeah. We hit it every year on opening day about different things and about really trying to disengage sometimes in the social media because it can be so distracting. It can get to you in those things. Things can turn on you fast and all that, but of course we try to re-emphasize in every facet that we're making good decisions off the field that don't embarrass the young man, the team, the university, or their families. So we try to, it's tough out there, and with everything else that's kind of changing in technology, what's real and what's not for people is going to be very, very interesting to come, but you hope and pray that our guys stay safe in that scope.
Okay, cool. What for you so far has been a pivotal moment at Kansas that you want to bring into the new stadium?
Pivotal moment for myself. I've never had one like that asked. That's a good question. Probably the fact that this program is now relevant and the excitement that we can be a football program that this university and fan base can get behind. And as we come into this new stadium, we need our fan base to be there as well. If you have a nice new venue, and as it continues to improve in the next phase, to truly make it impactful, we need people there to do it. Now, on the flip side, I get it that it's our responsibility to play a brand, a style, effective football that's people want to come and see, and a game day environment that is special that people want to partake in. All those things kind of come together. And to me, that's what makes college football so special. But yeah, I think that's probably the one that's been the most gratifying, is that I think we've been able to do it faster than what people thought could be done.
That was the first part of Lance Leipold speaking with the media on Media Day on Thursday. We will get to the second part coming up next. By the way, it was suggested to us, and I just wanted to put this out there. We are expecting to have Brandon McAnderson on to preview the season here on the podcast at some point. We had somebody on social media gave him a shout out, and so we've made contact. We are hoping to get him on soon to preview the season. And of course, we're going to be previewing Fresno State coming up early next week as well, heading into the start of the season. So I wanted to get that out there as well. Okay, we'll take one more quick break, and then we'll get to the second half of what Lance Leipold had to say at Media Day coming up next.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network.
Kind of just like a fun question, but if you could have one KU football alumni on your team, who would it be to kind of bring in the new football field?
Wow. You know, I say this all the time. I don't know how many times if you've been in this room before, but as soon as you name somebody, you leave 100 out. So Kenny Logan will be like blowing up my phone that I didn't say. And then if I pick the position, it'll be the player on this team will think that I don't think that they should be in there. So this is, you know, I'd probably go with Gale Sayers. How's that one for a safe one?
Hey Lance, staying on the new stadium, you guys have shown the recruits and the families kind of what it's going to be as it's going. What's the impact of now them seeing the final product?
Yeah, John, that's really good. You know, I've saw so many people. It's a credit to all the people behind the scenes in the design of the stadium, because I don't think I've read as much. Again, I don't probably read about every stadium project, though I try maybe, but is this one hit the renderings as good as any other stadium that people have seen about what it truly looks like. And for that, when we were able to show it to people, at least, you know, I say the outer shell part of it has been really cool, but when they get in everything to see how it's been done, and it was done in a first class way, and you know, it's not going to be perfect, and of course the people on a negative scope will find things that they'll pick apart, but it's been done really nice, and it's a huge upgrade. And as we continue to recruit to this facility, I know it'll continue to pay dividends for us.
You open with Fresno State, who, you know, new coaching staff, new coordinators, lost a lot of players. How do you prepare for somebody like that?
Yeah, that's not easy. You know, especially you know, Matt Entz is an excellent football coach, highly successful at North Dakota State before moving on to USC last year. But I can remember, I don't even know, my years are off, but I know the comment is, I had a good friend in coaching that worked with him, I think at Northern Iowa or something, talked about what a good football coach he was and what a bright future he had. And so I know his team's going to be well coached. I know they're going to be physical. They're going to be disciplined. I wouldn't be surprised if they're going to try to shorten the game up and make it into a 4-quarter game. You know, our past games with Mountain West teams haven't, you know, we've had to go to the wire. So we expect that to be a challenge. Now, when you assemble a staff, like when we arrived here, both coordinators came with, okay? So you have a pretty good idea by watching our Buffalo film what we're going to be about for the most part. But when you've been coaching at North Dakota State, then you go to USC, and then you bring coordinators from Northern Illinois and other places, and all of a sudden you're trying to put it all together. It makes it, we watch a lot of different film and to try to get an idea of what their identity will be. And of course, they've added new parts to their team as well. The transfer quarterback is now going to start, who has started at 2 other programs. So that makes all of it very unique, and I don't want to use the word unsettling, but I guess I will, is that you got to try to get a feel for what it's about in that first quarter, first half for sure.
Then last question for me, what are your thoughts on the offensive line as training camp wraps up?
You know, again, I don't think we're quite ready to announce the starters. I think Enrique, Cruz, and Nolan will alternate at the right tackle spot as it continues to battle. Amir Herring and Tobacco are continually batting at the left guard. We're healthy at the other spots. I think Kelvin Clements is at an excellent camp. Bryce Foster's back and going full speed. Kobe Baines has had another solid camp as well. So feel good about where it's going that way. I like the depth that we'll have there as well at some other spots between Tyler Mercer, Jack Tanner, James Livingston. I think, for lack of a better way of saying it, 1 through 10, when you go into your 2 deep of offensive line, will be as close together as it's been as far as gaps at positions than ever before since we've been here.
What has the development been like of that nickel position and having guys like Mason Ellis and Saeed Gibbs take part in it?
Yeah, it continues to be, based on health. The guy Saeed missed some time, but he's been back and he's actually put together some good practices. You feel real comfortable at that spot. Mason missed a little time, but I like what it gives us athletically. Both guys have been physical, and again, there'll be guys that'll play a lot there.
Coach Jacob Johnson with KU Journalism. With a lot of new faces on this roster, is there a player or a position group that fans will notice right away?
Well, our eyes always gravitate to the skill positions most of the time, so I would probably say that the ones that'll have a lot of new faces will be at the wide receiving core with Emmanuel Henderson, Levi Wentz, and Cam Pickett as new guys, along with Keaton Quebec and Doug Emilion, who have been in the program but haven't played extensively. So again, that'll be a position, I think, for new names for our fan base to probably keep an eye on. I know, Emmanuel, people have talked about for a long time now at our camp and things, but I think there'll be others there that they'll gravitate to. I think our linebacker core with Bengali Kamara, Trey Lathan, Joe Sipp will be guys that also as we will be some of those newer names that we'll talk about as well. Defensive end, Justice Finkley, and Leroy Harris will be 2 names, and Alex Bray's a guy that probably haven't talked enough about, the transfer from Illinois. He's a hard worker. He's a really hard worker, and he's going to play meaningful snaps for us as well.
Logistical question, just with Jim and DK taking over their new roles, do you know if they're going to be up in the box, down the field?
Jim will be up. DK will be down. That's where we start this year right now. And some of that is, just to kind of expound on it, Jordan, for you, is with the use of tablets. It's not, to me, I was always strong about both coordinators being upstairs for different reasons for what they could see what you do. But with the amount of analysts that are working in your program, or assistant position coaches, whatever we're going to gravitate to call them, and the ability for video to be accessible on the sideline, you can address things with right on the field as well. There'd be times back in the old days where you come in and watch film on Sunday and you go, I didn't know they were doing that, and nobody could see it based on when you had smaller staffs or whatever. Now we have resources and people that we can put in different areas and still get what we want.
At this point in camp, what's the health of the roster like?
Okay, I guess. Trending towards a decent. Dean Miller hasn't practiced much in the last couple of weeks. That'll be a big question mark going into it. I don't know. I haven't asked when I have to fill out my first official injury report. So, he'll be. Gage Keys hasn't practiced much. Bryson Canty hasn't practiced much. Other guys have been. Blake Harold hasn't practiced much. What am I missing in there? To me, it's the list. The list gets really long in the middle of camp, and then like some days now it shortens up. I told Trent Carter he's kind of like the game week's kind of like Southwest Airlines, where everybody needs a wheelchair to get on, but and when they get off the plane, they don't need them anymore. It's like like everybody can't practice at this time, then we hit game week, and miraculously, guys, he must have some healing powers or something. But we get healthier as it gets closer to game week, but no, in all seriousness, our training staff and doctors do a great job. We do a great job here with the strength staff as well of monitoring guys and keeping them at a level that when they do return to play, that they're able to come in conditioning wise and slide back into the rotation.
With you guys having to go into the portal for so many guys, how important was it, the strong close that you had the last season, that you were able to basically have that to, I don't want to say to sell to guys, but it was maybe a different impression than what it would have been if you guys had continued to struggle?
I'm sure it helped. I would be naive to think it didn't, about the direction of that we were still a good football team last year, and I think it hopefully helped solidify when somebody was looking for opportunity, culture-wise, locker room-wise, how things are, that we stuck together. I would think that helped, but we have to be honest, in this day and age, when guys are looking, there's more reasons than just some of that. They're looking at their opportunity to get on the field because they're usually leaving because playing time or money, and those are going to be the two biggest things. So as we adapt to this new world, try to keep that in mind. But as we're evaluating on our side, we're looking to see if it's going to fit into our culture the best way we can to get the best fit for the needs that we have.
When we talked to Jaleel Hurley, one of the things that he had mentioned was he helped with Emmanuel Henderson, basically saying, hey, take a look at Kansas. This is a great place. How often does that happen? And I guess how much does that mean that a guy who hadn't even really been in your program that long was such a salesman for you guys?
Jaleel's an interesting personality, isn't he? He's got a little bounce to him. He's been a great addition personality-wise to this program. Extremely athletic. He's got tons of potential. But to have someone like that when there's a player from the same school that's looking for a new home as well, obviously, that helps, because I still think as we battle in recruiting, we've got to fight to make lists yet, and there's a lot of things that happen to get somebody's attention to come take a look. On the good side of that is, if we can get someone here, they're always pleasantly surprised about the campus, the city, the program resources, the distance from Kansas City. When they make the drive, there's not a lot of, I thought this would be. It usually is, I thought it'd be a lot further out. I thought it would be like this. So when we have a chance to get them here, I think they kind of see, that there's something special here that's on the horizon, and I think that's what also has allowed us to retain the roster the way we have.
Time for one more.
Coach, you had an exceptional senior class last year. How's the transition of leadership look like between the guys on the team from last year to this year?
That's an excellent question, because there were some challenging times, because we've tried to you nudge and encourage guys to step up into more leadership. And then when we talk about as many new players have come in, there's guys that have leadership capabilities, but they just arrived, and finding their groove of how we do things, but also at the same time earning the respect of the guys in the locker room is a balancing act. But guys like Justice Finkley, Lyric Rawls, those guys that on the defensive side have really kind of moved into leadership roles and respect on this football team faster than what I anticipated. And of course, Deshaun Haneca was a guy who's battled injury, but his maturity and experiences just in college has been a great impact on our program and how he goes about it. Bryce Foster, Daniel Highshaw has really worked hard on becoming a leader and doing things in a way that others will follow, and really proud of him. And of course, Jalen's been there for a long time, and we've talked about it before, but even though he doesn't start, Cole Ballard is one of our better leaders as well.
that was Lance Leipold speaking with the media at Media Day on Thursday afternoon for KU football. Obviously, I had a lot to say there and a lot to digest. So there was a lot going on with that. He talked about the injury reports, talked about obviously a lot of discussion earlier on in the show about the David Booth donation as well, and sort of where the program is at for KU. We expect to hear from Lance Leipold again early next week in sort of a game week mode, and talking obviously a lot more about Fresno State specifically. So looking forward to that conversation as well. But I think that's going to wrap it up for this edition of the show. Thanks much for tuning in. And if you haven't already, please subscribe, leave a 5-star rating and review, drop a comment on Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen on audio. You can do the same thing on YouTube, share a comment, like the show, subscribe to the channel. And again, you'll certainly want to be subscribed on YouTube because we're going to be doing our YouTube live shows coming up starting next Saturday, immediately following the conclusion of the KU Fresno State game. We will be in the press box in the new booth. So you'll want to come hang out with us after the game and hopefully have a fun conversation about KU starting the season 1-0. And again, we'll be diving into Fresno State a little bit deeper next week to fully preview that game before Kansas kicks off the season. So stay tuned for that as well. But until next time, he's Kevin Flaherty. I'm Nick Springer. We'll talk to you again soon. See ya.